Hi, everyone. Welcome to Creative Connectors, the podcast from Broadband, where we explore how technology, creativity, and data are reshaping the future of marketing. I'm Shakier Groenewald, your host from Broadband, an AI marketing and advertising agency. I'm helping brands scale faster, smarter, and more creatively. So today we graced by the presence of Jessica. And we'll be talking about some of the most exciting spaces in marketing today, podcasting, and how brands are harnessing the power of storytelling, the power of its community, and connecting content with the right marketing impact to the consumers. So, as mentioned, I'm joining today. We've got Jessica Young. I'm transforming the way podcasts are produced, monetized, and distributed globally. Jessica, welcome to the Creative Connectors. How's your day been thus far?
It's been very warm. I feel like Cape Town summer is really coming in, so I'm glad to be in a nice dark office with a fan on. It's great.
Cool, cool, cool. But yeah, we really need to invest in some decent aircon here in Cape Town, eh?
Yeah, we really do. I need some of that Dubai aircon in Cape Town.
True. Cool. So, let's get started. So, tell us a bit about your role at Poddster. What does leading content marketing for creative tech company look like on your day to day?
Honestly, like every day is a little bit different, which I think is one of the things that I really like about working at like a multinational startup like Poddster. So, some days I'm rolling out like campaigns across all of our channels, which can look really different depending on which of our locations we're doing that for, being that we've obviously got a hub in Singapore, we've got one in Dubai, another one in Abu Dhabi. And other days I'm working with our web development team on stuff for this website. We could be working on newsletters. Recently, something that I found really cool is that we're working a lot on optimizing our SEO, but specifically for AI and LLMs, which has been like really
Okay.
novel and a really interesting learning curve. Not something that I had on my bingo card for 2025, but I've loved learning about it. So yeah, every day is kind of a bit of an adventure, and that's what I like about it.
It's interesting you mentioning you're customizing your SEO for AI algorithms. Every day we hear more leaps in the development of AI and how it's playing in a day to day, not only day to day, but also from a data set point of view and how it's impacting marketing holistically. So, what are the challenges that you've experienced with the SEO scoring and
I would say the main challenge I think is that because it's so new, there's not necessarily any really established best practices that we could kind of follow. So a lot of it was, learning from maybe a couple of creators who really are in the know and on the forefront of something like this. And then weirdly enough, because it would know best, right? We're like dealing a lot with like talking to ChatGPT and other like LLMs to see kind of like how they would if they were writing for themselves to be picked up by other LLMs like themselves. Basically, them giving us a guidebook on how to do this. It's all very experimental, which is kind of fun, actually. I'm
cool,
I'm
cool.
curious to see like how it goes and how it changes, and we learn and sort of adapt as it gets more established and we learn a bit more about it.
So, have you certified your what you call this the prompt certificate? Do you have your prompt degree for ChatGPT and Gemini?
I mean, if it's an official thing, then no. But the amount that I'm talking to ChatGPT on a daily basis, I should be.
Cool. So, so podcast is helping Podster is helping many creators and brands launch their own podcast. In your personal opinion, when it comes to brand storytelling through audio and video and vlogs, etc., what would you advise would be the best practice for that?
I think if I Podster specifically, I think our like big sort of like central philosophy around creating like video first podcasts is very much about like simplifying, streamlining, and like standardizing. We're very big on like taking every step of the podcasting workflow and making it really repeatable and templatized, which kind of deals and eliminates like a lot of the technical stuff that people might need to worry about. And then that sort of like frees up brain space for like innovation and creativity. And that's not just like on our side with the actual production, but that's also for like all the brands and the creators who are recording with us, like knowing that everything is taken care of, it's exactly how they've done it before, really frees up time for them to think more about improving their content and their storytelling, and just kind of smooths out the whole process. I think that would be our approach to it, and advice if we were talking to anyone else about it, to be honest.
And if I may ask, that, you mentioned like storytelling, etc. In your opinion, authenticity, audience behavior, etc. How would you? What advice would you give people that start in the podcast? Do they need to be authentic? Do they need to be someone else? What kind of focus would you put on just in the way they present themselves or their content?
I mean, I think authenticity, it seems like such an overused, like it's a term that's like literally everywhere. I think in marketing it's like this,
Yeah,
maybe the second most popular phrase that you hear. I think it is very
that's an
true though.
organic.
Yeah, that and
That's an
organic,
organic.
yes. That, organic, and viral would be top three. um, I think like my advice to honestly like anyone, if whether it's brands or it's an individual creator, if it's a founder at a small company where they want to be like the person who's presenting, is definitely uh the word. It is about authenticity, right? I think if you're trying to present like as, somebody else, or maybe it's like a bit too professional, a bit like too clinical, a bit too prepared, I think that can sometimes come off as like quite off-putting to people. With, if we look at like how people engage with them in their daily life, right, it's a very like intimate thing. It's either like on a screen next to you, or it's in your ears, or whatever. And we see a lot of like the podcasts tend to like build a lot of community around them when they're done right. And I think that you're not really going to find your people or like attract the right tribe to your show if you're trying to either be like way too corporate, or just like not being like exactly who you are. I think it's very much like a vibe attracts the tribe sort of situation. Yeah, leading with like humanity and personality first would always be my suggestion.
Yeah. You're speaking about vibes and tribes and community and that. And like, how do brands utilize podcasts to increase the marketing presence from a marketing point of view? Do you consider it like a full funnel strategy? Is it like top of the funnel, bottom funnel? Yeah. What's your opinion?
Mm. Depends on the brand. What we've seen with a bunch of the brands that we've worked with across all of our different locations is that they're using podcasts at like varying stages of the marketing funnel, kind of depending on like what their goal is with it. So there are like a lot of brands who are sort of using it at that sort of like top of funnel, like awareness sort of stage, and that's often in conjunction with things like short form highlight clips from their shows that they're then distributing onto social media. And that can be really effective at that stage. I think there's a 2014 study by Acast where they found that, I want to say it's like 48% of podcast listeners were discovering new shows through something like social media. So for brands, that's also something that definitely applies. It can fit in there. But there's also like, use cases for it at like different stages a bit further down the funnel. We know of a couple of podcasts. And in fact, if I remember correctly, our founders podcast back in the day, which was the kind of inspiration for like why Poddster started in the first place, people are using it in like this sort of stage of the funnel where they're like inviting, key decision makers and people that they'd like to work with at various different companies onto their shows as guests, and using that as like a way to like nurture and build a like really like deeply connected and present like one-on-one sort of relationship. So they're using it at that sort of stage. And then there's like still other examples where maybe a bit more niche, they're like using it to build like community among their existing brand participants. If they've already got like an engaged audience somewhere else, often like the podcast is a chance for their target audience to just get even closer to the brand and the company as a personality and whatever they're doing. So it's very versatile. It can kind of fit in anywhere depending on what your goal is.
100%, but I think it also boils down to like your followers, your subscribers, etc. And also, like you said, like your vibe or your tribe. I'm sorry, your community or your tribe. And
Mm,
it's important, like you said, it's just about being true to yourself and being as authentic as possible within the bounds of the sector that you're focusing on as well.
mm,
So I think that's very
mm.
cool points that you've raised there. And I mean, it also brings me to like another question. Like, I mean, how do you find the balance between being educational, entertaining, and strategic in your podcast content? I
Mm.
mean, what would you advise
Yeah,
would be like
again,
this perfect split?
I don't know if there is one perfect split for every single brand. I think again it's so dependent on who they're talking to and the ultimate goal of like what their show is, like what is the KPI, how are they measuring the performance of that podcast, what do they want to get out of it. I think there's definitely in very corporate settings, there's definitely a place for very, very professional, maybe like slightly buttoned up, like interview shows and that sort of thing. I think if your goal is to have like a much broader audience appeal, like you want to tap into like a really wide market, then you want to have somebody leading that conversation who is like very deeply human. They probably need to be a little bit playful. They need to kind of reflect the audience that you're wanting to tap into. I think, brands could also just benefit a bit from maybe looking a bit further out than a like a strict sit down interview format. Interviews are great and they really can be effective, especially if like you're bringing a guest in as like a subject matter expert on like a topic that's really popping off at the moment. Um, but I think there are certain brands who would maybe be a lot better served if they were to look beyond that like strict interview format into something that's focused a bit more on storytelling. There's a great example that I talk about a lot from a company called Emergent Biosolutions, which I hadn't heard of until I found their podcast. They're the company that creates Narcan, of all things. Like, how would you make a podcast about a pharmaceutical company interesting? But what they did is they've got a podcast called Countermeasures, which I think has 2 seasons now, and it's absolutely fascinating. They sort of like take themselves out of like the center of the story, and instead their podcast is this very like journalistic documentary style, very rich audio storytelling, and it takes place like on the front lines following the like emergency services, people in communities affected by like the opioid crisis in the States, that sort of thing. And they're using that as a way to get like their brand out there and like showcase their role and like why they're important and what they're
It's
doing.
Yeah, it's a whole CSI kind of feel to it. By the sounds of it, it's funny you
Yeah, a
mention
bit.
it, because just 2 weeks ago, I'm a big talk listener. I love talk
Mm,
radio, and whether it's finance, whether it's economics, you name it, I enjoy
mm,
listening to those kind of things. Like, I mean, I can listen for hours, and also I've got like few select podcasters that I follow as well, with specifically within the industry, because it's amazing how much you learn just from listening.
mm.
But it's also not just about following blindly, but also doing your research to find out if it is something that you can incorporate as part of your day to day as well.
Yeah,
And I mean,
100%.
the topic came up about the cost of Narcan and how expensive it is, and
Mm.
like the ambulance or the first responders, like they've got a certain allocation for that. So I mean, it's quite interesting, and that you mentioned that as a topic.
I know, how
Yeah,
crazy. Just like full
yeah,
circle.
and that's just something that I listened to last week. And I mean, yes, I mean, like at Broadbrand, we talk a lot about AI and how AI can amplify, scale, and also reduce your time frame to, and of course your workload as well to free up time, and which you've mentioned previously as well. So, I mean, how's Podster integrating AI and automation in your podcast
Mm,
production? What are you
mm,
guys doing? What sort of tools you have in place, or is there a specific tool that you advise we consider?
I would say our post-production department's a pretty good example where they're using a lot of automation and then like some AI powered tools from the automation side of things. And this is actually something that we use kind of across the business. I mean, I'm using it in the marketing side, they're using it in the studio, they're using it in the post team as well. Um, a lot of like Zapier, Monday.com integrations, which are all automated to keep us like away from like busy work. Something as simple as we've got this giant Monday board where we're tracking like the status of any episode that's being worked on at any point for any client, and there's a lot of them. I mean, we're recording, I believe it was like 5 or 10 terabytes of footage a day in just the Dubai studio alone.
Terabytes.
So there's, yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot. And obviously for our producers to be going through and like manually marking like where each thing is at any given stage is entirely laborious and not a good use of anybody's time. So we've got automations that like as things change slightly in the workflow, it's moving these things down further and down like down the pipeline and the relevant people get notified, etc. That's really fantastic as a use of like an example of automation that we're using. A bit more on the like AI powered side, I think the perfect example would probably be Descript, which is a really, really amazing like video editing software. They started out a couple of years ago and we were using it right at the beginning when Podster started, and it's evolved so much in the last like 3 to 4 years. It's actually crazy. Because of the AI powered features that it has, it can really eliminate a lot of that grunt work from our editing workflow, which then frees up our team to have more time to focus on like bringing like their personal creativity, storytelling, thinking intentionally about like every episode or highlight clip that they're working on, and then also to like use that brain space that it's freed up to suggest improvements to our clients when they're corresponding with them, you know, about what they could do better next time, how they can make each episode better than the last. So I'd say those are like the two best examples of how we're using AI and automation as a company.
No, that's great. And I mean, from a marketing point of view, because you mentioned that you also do marketing as well. And I mean, every marketing team has pain points, and of course, some has big challenges that they need to overcome. So I mean,
Mm,
tackling the how do you guys tackle that at Podster? I mean, content volume, analytics, and that. So you integrate
mm,
it with your CRM, which is Monday.com, and then
mm.
that of course tracks your workflow, pipeline, etc. But I mean, is there anything else that you've picked up that are causing challenges where you feel that AI could
Mm.
help or reduce the workflow?
I think not so much reducing workload. I think because we've got, we approach like our marketing kind of the same way that we approach everything at Podster, which is templates, standardized, you know, repeatable, proven processes. And I think that forms like the foundation of like the vast majority of any activity that we're working on at any point. And that does sort of allow us a bit of like freedom in terms of time to spend making sure like the quality of whatever we're putting out is really good. However, there is definitely like one area which I think most marketing people would agree with me on this, where something with like AI could really help a bit is probably like analytics. You know, getting anything that's going to give me more data and enable us to analyze it, you know, and
In
determine
real
like
time.
actionable next steps more effectively, more accurately, faster, you know, more specifically, you know, that would always be something that I would be happy to have in my workflow. I don't think we marketing people can ever get enough data.
Yeah, hey. Like I always tell my clients, like I mean, if you think you've briefed me enough, just read through it again, see if you've missed out anything. If there's anything else you can add, add it. The more I have,
Yeah.
the better I'm able to. Yes, I'm a firm believer of good data as well. And it's interesting because I mean, like, it's so difficult. difficult because, like if you take YouTube for example, they use a different ecosystem to display their media, etc., and the analytics falls in a different format versus Monday.com. How does that integrate with your CRM as well? So it's interesting how you can use AI to build custom tools to then integrate everything in a centralized space. No, I mean that's also like at Broadbrand. I mean, we're also part of the bigger group called the Digital Solutions Group, and part of our solutions is an AdTech and MarTech solutions as well, where we custom build API integrations for clients with the CRM and the data points as well. So I mean, it is an interesting space that we could potentially explore.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, you were saying to add on to that?
Yeah, no, I was saying anything that's like good at like centralizing, pulling everything into one place. But yeah, again, it's the detail level that's the thing for me. I want to know exactly what the like magic sauce was that made somebody convert. Anything that can give me that like granular level of detail is like the best thing from my
100%.
perspective.
And I mean, like everybody mentions AI. I mean, and they think about the cost involved. I mean, what sort of investment do you think would be a good investment for AI in your current day to day? I mean,
A good investment
based on the
in terms of like
current AI tools that you've seen that's changing the workflow, your framework, etc., and your time to go to market. I mean, from a cost perspective, do you think it's a good investment or is it a bad investment?
I think it's good depending on like if it's meeting like the needs that people have, then yeah, like we can always use something that's gonna, free up time, deal with that sort of grunt work, or give us a like customized sort of solution to a like problem or series of problems that eliminates having to do like a lot of manual work in a spreadsheet. I think then it's a good investment.
And so you don't mind investing in budgets and resources when it comes to ultimately solving the needs or your pain points.
Yeah, I think so. If it's proven that it can do it and we can like definitely see the value that it adds, then yeah, I've seen Poddster like invest in a bunch of different tools. It's always just about like proving the value that it has and then ensuring that it's accurate. And then it's yeah, it's something.
Cool, cool, cool. And I mean, yeah, so we are nearing the end of the podcast, and I mean, I've just got like a few what we refer to as rapid fire questions. So just to conclude everything. So I mean, a quick one. First thing that comes to mind, your favorite podcast, preferably not your own.
Ooh, okay. If we're talking about like a podcast with a video component, I would say A Bit Fruity by Matt Bernstein. And if we're talking about like a traditional audio only podcast, then Invisibilia from NPR.
Okay, cool. I must actually look into that. Sounds interesting. And then, yeah,
Mm.
marketing buzzwords which you've banned forever. I know that we've touched on a few of these
I mean,
earlier.
we talked about authentic earlier, but I think I'll go with let me pick viral for this.
Viral, considering the space you're in. Cool. And then, I mean, would you prefer video and audio or audio only podcast?
Ooh, that's difficult. I'd say video and audio because I'd like to have the option to watch it if I want to.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. And I mean, in your experience, which converts better? Is that
A
video?
video. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And then, yeah, I mean, one app you cannot live without.
Ooh, at work, Canva, definitely Canva.
Cool. And then, have you tried the new, what's it, Affinity?
No, I haven't. Is it the photo editing app?
It's an editing and design app, and apparently it's
Mm,
completely free. And it's in partnership with
yeah.
Canva as well.
Okay, that's really interesting. No, I
Yeah,
hadn't heard of that.
yeah,
They were paid last time I
cool,
checked, but if it's the same app that I'm thinking of, they're very good, and that's a very cool partnership.
cool. And then, yeah, last one, AI in marketing. Is it a game changer or do you think it's just hype?
Mm, I'll say I'm like 50-50 split on this. So let's go right down the middle and say very useful tool.
Very useful tool. Okay, so you don't want to put your opinion out there.
I'm an inherently risk averse person. I always go kind of like walk the line right down the middle.
Okay, well, I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it. Well, I mean, Jessica, thank you so much once again for your time. It's been very insightful and enlightening conversation. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear how Poddster is, of course, redefining the podcast landscape through the innovation and creativity that you guys are doing. As you know, that at Broadbrand, we are a very forward-thinking brand, just like yours, and we try to solve clients' bespoke needs and custom built packages to align with the pain points as well. Using AI powered content creation to help us optimize that, and of course, tapping into our data driven solutions to then help with the storytelling of that as well. So, if you're a listener today and there's something that's resonated with you, visit broadbrand.co.za. And if there's something from the Podster that you're keen to find out more, I mean, just to confirm, Jessica, could you give them your how to get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. Easiest way to find Podster is probably to go to our main website. It's podster.com, nice and simple. And there you can find all of our different different locations, and we're also on social, predominantly on Instagram, which is also just at Podster.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. And it's Podster with a double D, eh?
Correct. That's correct.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, Jessica, thank you once more for joining the Creative Connectors podcast today, and wishing you and the Podster team continued success in shaping the future of audio and podcasting across the years to come. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Creative Connectors, the place to reflect, where data, culture, and creative